Hey there everyone, I'm meteorologist Cassie Nall and this is your 10 weather impact recap for the week. Let's start with a look at some of the top weather stories. In Switzerland, a massive glacier partially collapsed on May 28th, burying a village under tons of mud and rocks. Glaciologists are expressing concern about the accelerating rate of thawing of the ground and melting of glaciers in the Swiss Alps. Unstable conditions observed at the Birch Glacier led to the precautionary evacuation of the village below in the valley, and thankfully the roughly 300 residents and all livestock had been moved to safety days before the collapse happened. In Hawaii, the Kilauea volcano put on a show last week, sending fountains of lava high into the sky. Episode 23 of the eruption that began back in December was short but spectacular. Dual fountains spewed molten rock as high as 1,000 feet into the air. The show only lasted for about 6 hours, but monitoring patterns indicate that another summit fountaining episode is likely to occur in the coming weeks. Kilauea is one of the most active volcanoes on Earth. In Canada, more than 25,000 people across 3 provinces have been forced to evacuate as massive wildfires burn out of control. Hot and dry conditions are helping to fuel the flames, and at the moment there's no relief in sight. More than 1 million acres have already burned this year. Smoke from those wildfires is being blown southward into the U.S., reducing visibility and air quality from the Midwest to the Southeast, even creating hazy conditions here in East Tennessee. And before that smoke arrived over the weekend, a tornado touched down near the Loudoun-Monroe County line on Friday, just to the northwest of Sweetwater. The National Weather Service surveyed the damage and determined that an EF0 tornado with winds of 85 miles per hour destroyed buildings and toppled trees near the Luttrell community early Friday morning. The twister was only on the ground for 2 minutes with a path length of about 2 miles. Friday's tornado was the 4th tornado to impact our viewing area in about a 14-day window, finishing the month of May the same way we spent most of it, with rain and with storms. In fact, last month was the 8th wettest May on record in Knoxville, putting a damper on a lot of outdoor plans, but the rain was actually a good thing. It helped to completely erase all of the drought conditions across our area and put some much-needed moisture in the ground before the heat of summer arrives. And all that rain also helped to keep waterfalls and rivers flowing strong. And 8 months after Hurricane Helene impacted parts of Cocke County, the Pigeon River is back open for business. Emily Crabtree talked with the owner of one rafting company in Hartford about what this milestone in the recovery process means for the local economy.
Schmo is a way of life. It's not just a place to work.
For the rafting companies across East Tennessee, the last few months have been full of uncertainty. But now there seems to be a light at the end of the tunnel. Smoky Mountain Outdoors in Hartford sits right next to the Pigeon River. And when Hurricane Helene hit,
Smoky Mountain Outdoors was a 100% total loss. We lost every building, everything that our company had, our boats, our equipment, our buildings. The best part is we didn't lose any staff.
The rafting community is a huge part of Cocke County's economy. People from all over come to raft along the Pigeon River.
Our busiest year ever, we did 74,000 people. Yeah, it's a big operation. We employ about 160 people.
And even though the last few months have been filled with hard work, people say it's brought the community together.
It's been quite a, how shall I say it, not a good experience. But now I'm starting to see where we're turning a bad experience into a great opportunity.
Another sign of progress after that historic storm impacted our region. Norfolk Southern has reopened a freight line between Newport in Tennessee and Asheville in North Carolina. Helene slowed freight operations by destroying miles of both railroad and roadways. But now businesses on both sides of the state line are celebrating this major milestone to reconnect the vital economic lifeline for local communities. In western North Carolina, some communities were cut off from the rest of the world after Helene caused widespread destruction across the region. The only way those storm victims could get critical information was from Blue Ridge Public Radio. Now, that service is facing funding cuts that could threaten the future of the organization. Kathy Park shares how silencing that resource could impact communication in rural areas.
The damage from Hurricane Helene in parts of North Carolina was so unprecedented. 8 months later, some places around Asheville still look like a disaster zone, and the lives here still in limbo question support from the federal government while sounding the alarm over proposed budget cuts.
So we're 18 feet
from the floor
and
the water line's there.
Areas like this that would normally be bustling are eerily quiet and empty.
This parking lot would be full. It's May, so we'd be ramping up for the summer, which the summer is our major hitter.
Jacqueline and Mark Oliver own a communal space and gallery for woodworkers in the River Arts District, a corner of the community struggling to recover.
What are some of the biggest challenges right now as far as getting folks back into this space?
We can't open on an island, so we need infrastructure to get, we need plumbing, we need water, we need all of these things that are out of our control.
We're going to get you the resources you need and the support that you deserve, and we'll be at your side through every step of the rebuilding, and no American is going to be left behind.
President Trump made those comments in January as he toured the area in one of his very first trips after the inauguration. But recently, FEMA announced an end to its 100% disaster recovery reimbursement for the state. Now it's 90%. An official from FEMA telling us in a statement the typical assistance is 75%, and that, quote, President Trump turbocharged the federal relief aid process to speed up delivering resources to those impacted by Helene and supporting their recovery. Governor Josh Stein appealed, his office saying he's still pushing for the full 100% match and that it will cost the state $200 million without it.
We're not in a game. This is life. And you're playing with our livelihood. Government is talking while people are working.
But it's not just funding for Helene's recovery that concerns people here.
We'll have a look at local news for you.
They fear critical tools for the next disaster are also on the chopping block.
It's roughly $330,000.
Laura Lee is a news director for Blue Ridge Public Radio, BPR.
Roughly 8 to 9% of our budget comes from the Corporation for Public Broadcasting. So if that goes away, we have a layered financial problem.
This month, President Trump signed an executive order targeting cuts to NPR funding. But during Hurricane Helene, Asheville's BPR became a lifeline.
BPR's Laura Hackett spent time yesterday speaking with residents of Asheville waiting in line at grocery stores and water distribution sites.
We went from a news service right into public service, and most of our airtime was spent just helping people connect with things they didn't have. I mean, water, medicine, diapers, food.
Floodwaters and mud cut off entire communities, but the loss of power and communications left thousands in the dark.
So you really had to take your life in your own hands.
Shelly Anderson and her neighbors managed to stay connected the old-fashioned way.
If you don't have it charged up, you've got to crank it to get it to start.
A hand crank radio tuned to BPR.
I literally didn't want to hear anything else. I just wanted to hear what's happening.
The White House press release around Trump's executive order says NPR and PBS have fueled partisanship and left-wing propaganda with taxpayer dollars, which is highly inappropriate. We reached out to the White House for comment and have not heard back. NPR's CEO responding to the order saying it's unwavering in our commitment to integrity and editorial independence and will vigorously defend our right to provide essential news, information, and life-saving services to the American public. The Corporation for Public Broadcasting also pushing back against Trump's order and tells NBC News it doesn't think the tax and spending bill the U.S. House just passed addresses CPB funding.
If you had an opportunity to say something to the administration right now, given the circumstances, what would you say?
I mean, I would say you could come visit us again. I mean, just see how much work there is to be done. The longer you wallow in this, it's more businesses are having to close their doors. We just need help, and we need cooperative help, all working together.
As the community struggles to recover from a historic disaster, calls for help still ring out.
Now that we've entered the month of June, we have also entered meteorological summer. In the world of weather, we define the seasons by calendar months and average temperatures. So with June, July, and August being the warmest months of the year, they make up summer. Over the next 3 months, our average highs will go from the low 80s to the upper 80s from late June through the end of August. And as of now, the Climate Prediction Center is forecasting a chance for above average temperatures and above average precipitation through the summer season, though there will likely be some cooler and drier conditions at times along the way. June 1st also marks the beginning of the Atlantic hurricane season, which runs until November 30th. Current outlooks show a 60% chance of above average activity, with forecasts from both NOAA and Colorado State University in agreement for a more active season. The factors behind those higher numbers include above average sea surface temperatures, which provide fuel for the storms, La Nina or neutral conditions creating lighter wind shear and a more favorable environment for the developing storms, and an active West African monsoon, which is where many of the tropical waves originate from, especially during the heart of hurricane season. Once a tropical system becomes organized enough, it will receive a name, and there are 6 lists of 21 names that are chosen by the World Meteorological Organization. The lists do not change unless a storm is destructive enough for the name to be retired. For example, this year, Dexter will replace Dorian on the list after the Category 5 hurricane devastated the Bahamas in 2019. Now, hurricane season began on June 1st, but 8 of the last 10 years have actually had a named storm develop before the official start of the season. Activity typically ramps up by mid-July, with the peak of season occurring on September 10th, but every season is different. Early season storms typically develop close to home in the Gulf or along the East Coast, but as water temperatures warm, that favorable area of development expands through the Caribbean and into the Atlantic, especially in August and September. As conditions cool through the fall, we have to keep an eye on sneaky storms that form back closer to home again in October and in November. After 17 years underground, the brood 14 cicadas are singing the song of their species loudly across parts of East Tennessee. Not everyone will see them, but Big South Fork and Great Smoky Mountains National Park, especially around Cades Cove, have reported large numbers of the red-eyed critters. There are multiple broods of periodical cicadas that emerge every 13 or 17 years in different parts of the country, so we can have back-to-back years of large broods or multiple broods in the same year. Cicadas are typically most active during the daylight hours, and their singing is usually triggered by sunlight and warmth. If you hear noise at night, that's usually crickets and katydids. Our regular annual cicadas will emerge soon, signaling the beginning of summer. And we've heard a lot of cicada singing lately because it's been warm and sunny so far this week. These temperatures are running above average, but as we head into the weekend, we might see those higher rain chances popping back up. So make sure that you get the very latest updates with your forecast as we get closer to that time frame. Thank you so much for watching. And remember, you can always get the very latest with that forecast in the 10 News app. It's free to download in the App Store.